Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. And we have Andrew joining us tonight to share a lot of very valuable information. Andrew, thank you for joining us. And if you'd like to share a bit about yourself.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Well, first of all, just a brief background. I do advanced body work, and a huge focus in my body work is trauma, emotional trauma. I also work with emotional and spiritual release techniques. So I come from trauma from many perspectives, both the somatic side and also doing more what we call consciousness work or soul journey work. So I'm a believer in integrating as many pieces as one can, looking at the physiology, looking at the spiritual side, looking at pretty much anything and everything that would contribute to the issues. Obviously, spiritual, let's say ancestral memories, heavy-duty karmas have enormous fallout on the entire being, both mentally, spiritually, physically, systemically. And today, when we discuss some of these issues, we're going to see some of how things cross over and relate. So today I wanted to discuss a tool that I find very helpful, and it's called whole body vibration therapy. So I have up here a blog, and we have several blogs on this, so you could read these blogs. But essentially, to make it simple, there's a gentleman named Peter Levine who studied animals when they went into trauma. And essentially, animals have three choices. One is to run, the other is to fight, and the third, least favorable option, is to freeze. So when they go into a freeze response, which is playing dead basically, he witnessed that if they don't go through a shaking, trembling ritual, which he calls somatic experiencing, if they didn't do that, they would literally die. So they would play dead and stay dead, basically. So the whole vibration therapy, basically, in a nutshell, mimics that ritual. And with humans, it's not necessarily, let's say, every situation is life or death, but there are many situations where humans, their energetic body wants to express, but it's suppressed. It's obvious, if you're, let's say, shame, guilt, you're in school, teacher shames you or whatever. This is, I can think of a million examples. But the body wants to engage energetically, and a lot of times it's not permitted. Just even the fact that people go to school and sit in a room for so many hours a day is suppressive on the energy body. So that's the starting point. Peter Levine's ritual of shaking and trembling, the vibration machine achieves that phenomena. Now, there's so many other dimensions to this in terms of what I've studied, where the vibration machine, for instance, Rife therapy. Rife therapy uses very intense frequencies, square wave and sawtooth frequencies to break up and destroy, bacteria, viruses, etc., etc. It's intense harmonics. So when you tune these two motors together, and that's critical that you buy a two-motor machine and tune them together, you can achieve very, very intense, what I call shredding harmonic frequencies. So it mimics Rife therapy. The other area that it is similar to is buying a very intense pulsed electromagnetic machine. And the way they work, it's an on-off pulsing magnet with a very strong frequency that essentially rings the hell out of a cell and breaks up very stagnant fields. And this is a very intense dynamic that this machine creates, similar to that pulsed electromagnetic, and it has the same capability of breaking up very dense formations. So briefly, trauma is, we have this blog here, Releasing Emotional Trauma with Whole Vibration Therapy, which talks about the Peter Levine work and this emulating what we call that shaking, trembling ritual. However, we also have another blog here called Chi Stagnation, Visceral Manipulation, and the Choking of the Organs. And we also have one more blog that kind of explains the relationship between the subconscious mind, the meridians that are signaling from the mind, and the connective tissue. So again, to make it simple, when you have this freeze pattern, the Chinese call it qi stagnation, but really what happens is when the mind signals a trauma and the body goes into a seizing, freezing mechanism, the connective tissue gets the signal from the meridians and it starts to kind of lock down. And because it's traumatic, it's almost like a grip. I write in this blog that it's like a boa constrictor grabbing its prey. And the way it clamps down, very similar, you have an internal boa constrictor response. Once that lockdown occurs, the qi stagnation is really what refers to the blockage of energy no longer able to flow. And this is really the primordial centerpiece in all the work. That lockdown phenomena is why you experience these tremendous intense emotions, because this refuses to let go. So you're trying to break the grip. So when the grip takes place in the organs, you can get incredible health problems. Now, one of the colon, for instance, in Chinese medicine represents grief. It has enormous surface area. So when you get this emotional gripping in the colon, you can have all kinds of health problems, constipation, all kinds of diseases like Crohn's disease, for instance. And very few people actually think about this phenomena as a critical cause of these diseases. Some people call Crohn's the mother's disease, for instance. People kind of recognize there's great intensity, anxiety, and emotions, but they haven't really looked at it, from the literal physiological sequencing from the mind to the meridians to the connective tissue. And once you understand the phenomena of connective tissue, you actually can start to unwind the tissue that's locked, break it up, and then, of course, do spiritual work and emotional work to get to the memories and the traumas. But essentially, you want to work all levels. You want to break up the fascia lockdown. Now, just quickly, the liver, for instance, when it locks down, and the liver meridian represents frustration, anger. The spleen, stomach is incessant worry. So when you can get all these organ systems to start to unwind, and the associated memories that go, the excessive worry, well, when you have trauma, it turns, it can go from anger to grief to fear to worry. It just goes round and round and round. So then the idea in Chinese medicine is to hit these blocked meridians, these blocked pathways, using key acupuncture points, but now we're also adding extra tools. I also use a tool called the rapid release tool, which is a specific, we have, if you go to my practitioner site, Meet the Practitioner, you'll find it there under advanced bodywork. The rapid release tool is just a specific site locating vibration machine. My clients call it the jackhammer, the cement breaker. It literally will break up intense connective tissue formations, including scar tissue and adhesions. Scar tissue and adhesions is the extreme, but before you get there, you have connective tissue that will not let go. And this pulls on the muscles and impinges nerves. So when you combine the rapid release with this whole body vibration therapy, it's quite extraordinary. I put all my clients on the whole body vibration machine before a treatment. Now, one thing here, you see, here's a little video, and this is Chris, and I'll just play this, but he's wearing a breathing mask. Now we have a series called Maximize Your Bluesy Water Therapy, and he's wearing a grounding strap which goes to the ground plug in the wall. He's also wearing these reflexology sandals. So he's getting a turbo reflexology treatment, and when you wear the breathing mask, you essentially create a very relaxed physiological state where you can receive way more oxygen. We have a blog called Breathe Like a Yogi for Dummies. You can find it under Meet the Practitioner blog. And it explains the importance of doing this simple, easy, dumbed-down breathing practice using this mask. Basically, we are creating a much more CO2 balance in the body, and that causes everything to let go and relax. So while you're trying to break up all these intense lockdown fields, number one, you're grounding the body because, you're sending the information to ground, which is Mother Earth's intelligence. but the mask is actually increasingly opening up the letting go phenomena, helping with that, and therefore the breaking down and the fear response also, because when you relax, when you receive more oxygen, your mind gets at ease. Some people have referred to chi as actually just an abundance of oxygen flow. So basically that's an overview, and it's really simple. And what's better than to be doing what animals do and learn from their intelligence, learn from nature. It's fun. It has enormous benefits structurally also if you have issues with your legs. I know people who couldn't walk, so sorry here. And we got to get out of this one. Anyhow, who have gotten on vibration machines and could start walking again. So it's enormously engaging on all connective tissue and getting deep into those really heavy-duty blocked fascial formations. So any practitioner should really consider this, because trauma really is the root. And you're trying to work with somebody, if you can get people to let go, to engage the places in their body where the freeze exists, it's huge. Okay, so Karen? Hello?
Andrew, sorry, I muted myself, but I've just, yeah.
Okay,
you want me to change the screen or do something?
Oh, no. So that's basically the presentation, the summary of it. We have anybody on yet?
Yeah, we have a bunch of people on. Does anybody have any questions for Andrew? Thank you all for joining us tonight.
These 3 blogs, by the way, are the really good blogs to read. Releasing Emotional Trauma explains Peter Levine's work. Chi Stagnation explains the relationship between this freeze response and the connective tissue and how it profoundly affects the organs. So it's important to understand that relationship. This actually gets into depth, explaining the relationship between the subconscious mind, the Chinese meridians, and connective tissue. Anybody doing practitioner work, it's imperative to understand this relationship. Because if you're just doing tissue work... Sorry?
I was going to say, maybe you could go into a little bit more depth about this, Andrew. This is fascinating.
Well, if you do acupuncture, if you're a chiropractor, I mean, there are issues with practitioners, I think, based on, how much they can do. But anybody really going into depth in body work knows, number one, that there are traumas that, if you're a Ralpher, you'll be talking about it stored in the fascia. If you're into Chinese medicine, you're going to be talking about the meridian, the organ systems relating to very profound emotional states. And the Chinese meridian points have very mystical names. If you do cranial sacral therapy, which I do also, you're looking at a rhythm and an unwinding rhythm, which is a physiological meditation cycle in the body. It's actually roughly 3 cycles per second, just like slow breathing. So regardless of where you're coming from in body work, you're still faced with thoughts, memories, and stored memory in the body. I work with a lens seeing the meridians and the tissue and the craniosacral. They're all affected in my work. But what really happens is the craniosacral wave I call the grace current. If there's too much blockage, it just can't get through. So the leg work, the meridians really are signaling deeper into the subconscious. It's like where those really deep, it's kind of knows, it's an intelligence that can kind of begin to get to the memories. Now the memories themselves, that's extraordinary. And we have, let me show you one more blog here. I use the Ho'oponopono model for memory. And basically, first of all, in a simple concrete way, they talk about you're carrying the memories of your ancestors, and you literally replay their karmas, their memories. So that's in a lot of work, and it's pretty much a given for me. Then comes past lives. So pretty much your consciousness taps into all kinds of memory events. And then the problem is we have a hard time picking up on the clues. So that's where, you know, your mind jumps in and makes all kinds of stories up. And this is where it gets fascinating. The body work is definitely saying, there's a memory here playing, there's a consciousness issue, please help me. From there, you're looking at spiritual work, and this is probably a topic for another time, but the meridians are sending the subconscious plea, you might say, you know, saying, look, we got something going on here. I'm sending a signal. It's causing this fascia intensity. Pay attention. That's really what it's about. Pay attention. Now you're into a response kind of interface, and you're trying to, at least now you're listening. When you tap into the meridians and start to do the work, you are starting to respond, and you might say from the outside in. But literally at that level, it's still, the message is there, it's recorded, and if you acknowledge the message, it's a huge step. And really, that's pretty much, in body work, the best you do is to begin an incredible acknowledgement and responsiveness to the body's saying, here, go here, I'm stuck, I'm grabbing, I'm twisting. But what you don't know is the source. And there are works to help kind of get a little closer. I use the emotion code as sort of a tracking system, you might say, to when memories occurred and what the nature of the memory is. It's never going to be, you're never going to, you know, I mean, some people do past life regressions and they, you know, vividly relive a past life. I think that has some merit, but the importance is that if you can get close enough to the memory that's being signaled into the body and start a communion process with it, then in all the works I've studied, God or divinity is the one who really takes over in the higher level and brings the love and the forgiveness that that memory really is seeking. It's not so much about the detail of the story, it's much more about the love and forgiveness process. So I don't know if this blog gets a little more, you know, specific, but again, you know, it really is just saying here, you got the subconscious mind signals, there's some trouble going on, it sends it down the meridian highway. The meridians then act like vast vortexes. They kind of load up. One analogy that is a good one I think people can relate to is if you think of a snare drum and you screw the head of a snare drum down, the screws are like the meridian points, the meridians. The snare drum, the head is like the connective tissue, and the whole drum is like the cranial sacral. If the drum is too tight, the drum will not wave, it will not play music. So you feel stuck. As a drummer, you would be frustrated. Now, even if you release the screws, the meridians, the drum head will potentially relax, but if it's been locked down a long time, you need to tonify the drum head. In other words, you need to almost relax the head. It can still be in a grip state even when you relax the meridians. And it's a very good analogy for body work. So I use that rapid release tool to essentially recondition the drum head. I use electroacupuncture to unwind the drum screws, and I use cranial sacral to allow the music of God and spirit to bring the intelligence back into the body. So any questions now? Karen, you there? Hello?
I'm
Karen?
here.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
here. Yeah,
Did you
no,
fall off at the other end?
no, I'm listening.
It did not have an earthquake, did it?
No, no earthquakes, no tidal waves, no hurricanes. We good. Does anybody have any questions so far for Andrew? And you can always call Andrew or email him also, and that information is on the training email that I sent out. And it's also, you can also get the contact information on Andrew's site here, the Blue Sea Water site. Andrew, are you going to be speaking a little bit about the Ho'oponopono? Did I say that right?
Yeah, I just brought that up.
Okay.
The reason I like this teaching is it's probably the most heartfelt explanation of what's going on. And it always emphasizes that you're sourcing It's like basically prayer. But the way they explain how the subconscious works and the process, it's quite elegant. So basically what they're saying is the inner child has these memories. It's sending it up. So the first thing is to be kind. I love you to the inner child. And thank you for sending the memories up yet again, and they acknowledge that this is an endless process. You don't get it in one swoop. But instead of resisting and judging the inner child, which is very easy to do because the data is very painful, you really support the child and you distinguish between the memories and the child itself being afflicted. But you also, they say, take responsibility. I'm sorry, please forgive me, and this is the short form, for the fact that this is your consciousness that's going through this. I mean, it's a simple acknowledgement that you are in this state, you're going through it, and you take responsibility. Literally, you know, you're not blaming someone out there for creating a problem. So it's the way it's presented by Dr. Yu Lin. I have links on my site and under links to videos he does. It's really the poetry of the subconscious. Now they have what's called cleaning tools, which help you basically do this process better. Also, his teacher, Morna Simona, I have actually a Dropbox document to her, and she focuses more on, and this is very important, you're really forgiving your lineage. In other words, anything that you go through that's really hurting you, where you've been wounded by a parent, for instance, you've taken, you know, you're there, you're part of this consciousness lineage, and you're really being afflicted by what they were afflicted by. So it's just common sense. So you're really trying to forgive literally the entire family karma, you might say, all the sufferings that your family tree did and received. So it's just basically forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. The key, I think, in success is still the ability, these memories are so tucked away and I call operate in stealth mode. So the cleaning tools are partially trying to help you do this better, get to the memories. And that's really a huge piece. So I, you know, bring in my own set of cleaning tools that I find have been extraordinarily helpful, which is a lot of the somatic release work. Another thing besides the vibration machine that I talk about is the chi machine, which rocks you like a child, using a theracane to hit meridian points, and kind of, it's a bodywork practice, basically. So whatever cleaning tools work for you, you know, that's what's most important. For some people it might be dancing or writing poetry. You know, cleaning tools are just ways to get to the subconscious, the inner child, help it process, help it bring the memories up for forgiveness and love. Okay, so Karen, you're still there, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. So Ho'oponopono is, you know, I think it's good to check out Dr. Yu Lin and also Morna's teachings. Everybody has this question when you see, this is the biggest problem when something's inside you. A lot of times it's wreaking havoc, and it's very, very hard to get into a state of where you can receive forgiveness. And if you can learn to do that, that is really the ultimate skill set, to come out of a traumatic state. So again, the vibration machine, you know, you want to, what it's called, if you go into state, as people would call it, you want to be able to regulate the physiology. It's step one. So the breathing mask is huge in that. It creates a yogic-like breathing. Simply, you can be freaked out and do the breathing mask and not have to concentrate on the yogic breathing. It'll put you in that state automatically. Get on a rebound, get on the chi machine. But bottom line is, you're first trying to regulate the physiology. There's some memory that's creating havoc, and it's looping and looping. The vibration machine is one of the best things I've seen also, because it really does mimic what animals do. There's a certain level of intensity in that shaking that's quite phenomenal. Karen?
I'm here. Yeah, I'd like to just actually mention that I've had a few sessions with Andrew, and it's been transformative and huge shifts. But you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent with doing the work with yourself, and it's like anything in life. You get out what you put in, and if you want to release this trauma, then you really got to work it and use the techniques that Andrew is sharing with us tonight.
One thing I always find in all the work when I do it, my mind is always wrong. So when you really go into a state, when you get into communion with memory, the mind is half the problem. It's interpreting and making up stories. So you're trying, in a sense, get out of your mind and use, that's why somatic work is very good, because it's totally out of the intellect, out of the thoughts, out of the interpretations. You want to feel your way in, and by the way, a lot of the works I've studied, and I have come to believe this, encourage the dream mind, getting into your imagination. But get grounded, because the dream mind can go both ways. You can dream the horror and you can dream the bliss. But the key is to realize that you can bring, in a sense, that the dream of peace can heal the dream of horror, but you want to maintain a ground. And the vibration machine will always keep you grounded, especially if you use the ground strap we talked about and do the breathing. Any kind of healing movement or rhythm, you can count on that to ground you. Chi machine, that rocking rhythm. The craniosacral rhythm has never been deceitful in my body work. It might say, you know what, I can't get through right now, and that's honest. It's saying, look, there's too much trauma here, we need to do other work to unwind the situation, and I can't do what I do. And that's beautiful. It's like God. I can't right now, I can't help you because you're too discombobulated. So get yourself to a foundation, a ground, and then God comes in. That's our job. Our job is to regulate, balance, get into rhythm, and then God comes in and says, oh, okay, now maybe you can hear me. In that sense, I have that Buddhist self-responsibility, practice, practice, practice sense about doing this work. I also like the Buddhist terms. I'm sorry, Karen?
What's the Buddhist terms?
Obscuration is one of my favorite terms. The subconscious mind is obscure. It hides out. It's tricky. It's stealth. It's obscure. So you get confused. And then they call it the grasping and the attachment, what we're talking about in that blog about data meridians, about the choking of the organs. That's the grasping and the attachment. That's the literal grasping on the connective tissue. They got it. They understood it. They just didn't use the same, different terminology. But they didn't break it down that way. But they were into chakras, meridians, They were doing high-level access. By the way, the chakras is also something that is very helpful. And we have on one of our videos, on the Chi Machine video, and you can find that on our YouTube channel. Just go to our website or go to Google Blue Z Water and you'll find our YouTube channel. Or go to the website and go and look under videos. But we present the nano wands, and we have a couple of videos on the nano wands. I find them very helpful. I call them Chakra Amplifiers, and we have links to a place you can get them very cheap, $11 for a nano wand, which is very inexpensive, and they're really good. And for those of you who've tried to work with chakras but maybe find it, you're not quite getting it, try these nano wands. They really kind of amplify the chakra expression. And they're very good communicators. The chakras really help you get deeper into a kind of communion state.
Thanks, Andy. And sorry, what's the information for the nano wands? Where do you get those from?
Let me find the YouTube channel here. So you could. Okay, so this is our YouTube channel, Blue Z Water. And let me get in here. Hold on. Okay, so this is Blue Z water, and under videos, here's one. Nano wands in the chakras. We've had a lot more popular ones. I guess people don't know about nano wands. We also have one on how to use a pendulum, and this is one of my big advocacies. We have the newer blogs that are an overview of what to do when overview for a holistic program. I'm a stickler on people learning to self-energy check themselves. Yeah. Very few people do it, but the body's intelligence, the higher self, as you say, is much wiser than your mind. You might be on a protocol, but you're not a robot. And what I find is literally you can change week to week, even day to day. So when you're trying to do any type of regimen, you really need to have a yes-no checking in moment to moment and develop that skill set. But that's how to use a pendulum, which is next to the nano wands, so I'm getting sidetracked. But the nano wands, the links are here for the nano wands. There are a lot of people who, sell very expensive nano wands, and these are high quality. I've checked this company. There's a huge markup with some people on nano wands. These are $11. You can pay $250 or $300 for the same thing. So don't get, I believe people are getting ripped off. But anyhow, I call them chakra amplifiers, and they're very simple. And if you're interested in working with the chakras, just like a guitar would have an amplifier, so you can play to the big room. Try these. It might play to the big room in your consciousness. It digs in a little deeper.
And those are best used with the chi machine, Andrew?
You can use them. I use them. I sleep with them. If I wake up and something's going on, I just start literally accessing my chakras. And then I'll maybe put on the breathing mask, because sometimes you have a dream, it's disturbing, so I go into the breathing practice. Now, since I've been using the vibration machine, a lot of the other practices that I had to do more often, I do less. So that is a testimonial to the fact that shaking it off like animals do is a pretty profound thing. Please get the reflexology sandals with the vibration machine, because when you hit all the reflex points, you're really digging deep into all the organ systems. You need to get access. The key is getting in. The biggest problem is you have tremendous resistance you can't break through. So the nano wands are really good for chakra work. Any questions?
None yet. You want to wait till the end? Maybe everyone's waiting till the end to ask questions.
Well, we're good for questions anytime.
Okay. All right.
I really, one thing about somatic work, and I'm sure a lot of people, sometimes we try to do consciousness work, but we're not, a lot of the systems that I work with, actually, where is it stored in the body? Where is it stored in the body? Almost every system I've ever worked with, deals with where is it stored in the body. And EFT, in a way, is a global, you're hitting all the different tapping on the different meridians, hoping that you tap into some, one line of energy where it's stored. But let's just say when something's super stuck and an organ's really choking, it plays a lot heavier than just tapping on a meridian point or even putting a needle in. So, and even when you release it, using this practice and very intense bodywork practices, you still have to do the spiritual emotional side, because the off-body aspect is huge. But you can't ignore the on-body. They work hand in hand. I think some people, sometimes they're very much all into the energy psychology, just the body, and then some people are, just doing more the soul-mind work. You got to do both. Think of the body as the personality integration side. Alrighty, I think that's pretty much covers it, unless you want me to go off and talk about something else.
Do you want to talk about the bluesy water?
Briefly, yes. So the bluesy water, basically, just to go over its main three functions, it detoxifies the body profoundly. It'll clean filthy, toxic water externally. And basically, when it goes in the body, it just cleans heavy metals, chemicals. It works all the time. It uses what's called activated oxygen. It's kind of like having a flame, and it starts to burn things up, and then it gathers up the byproduct and carries it off. Unlike typical oxidation, it actually completes what I call it completes the oxidation cycle. You do not have byproduct. It actually gathers up the byproduct of the burn. It's like having a wood stove. You open it up, no soot, no ashes. Second feature is it's super hydrating. It's what's called structured water. You can find that in other products, but it's built into this product. The third feature is it has black mica trace minerals, which are extremely nourishing to the cells. Black mica is at the bottom of the ocean. It spews out from the ocean vents, and scientists call it miracle or mineral, I think they call it mineral sunlight, because they couldn't understand how ocean life survived that deep down. It was too dark. And literally these black mica minerals that spew from the vents provide sunlight. They have the frequency of light. Very extraordinary, very healing. So you get detox, you get feeding. It's similar to ozone therapy and chelation therapy. And we do have videos called Maximize Your Bluesy Water Therapy that teach you how to further amplify the effects of the water, the oxygen therapy side of it, to increase your detox intensity and minimize Herxheimer. So Maximize number one, which is covers the bluesy water using an ozone machine, which is basically lightning strikes to boost the activated oxygen in the water. It's not about the ozone itself, it's about the energy that the ozone machine produces to further increase the intensity of the water's activated oxygen using a rebounder, or you could use a vibration machine to pump the cells, literally a squeeze-release pump to accelerate the detox, and then use the breathing mask to break down the resistance and allow even more oxygen into the cells. If you do that program, and you've been sick and toxic a long time, that's an enormous program. And you also get the benefit with the breathing mask of deep relaxation and start the letting go process. If you get the vibration machine along with that, you start to shake off these traumas and you stop trying to think yourself out of your rabbit hole, and you just literally create these intense healing physiological states. Chi stagnation, the choking, think of the choking of the organs, start there. If you can unchoke yourself, success is around the corner.
Thanks, Andrew.
Oh, and by the way, bluesy water is very cheap. It's $36 for 96 gallons. It treats 96 gallons, which is roughly 6 months' supply if you drink a half a gallon a day. It's extremely affordable.
I only use a few drops.
Say again?
I only use a few drops each day. So should you increase the dosage? I mean, should you?
It's a half a teaspoon per gallon. What do you mean a few drops?
I just put a few drops in my 32-ounce water bottle.
No, you should use
half a teaspoon
per gallon. That's a basic dosage. You can actually, we have on our bluesy water video number 3, and there's a free ebook. So please go to our website. What is bluesy water? I'll find it here. And there's a free ebook where this doctor is essentially using intensive dosing of the bluesy water, Dr. Nohima, and curing cancer and all kinds of diseases. Now, he's increasing the activated oxygen. He's in a hospital setting, too. Here's the book right here. He's in a hospital setting because, again, when you ever do an intensified detox, you really need, it'd be best to contact me so we can make sure we handle the Herxheimer side of it. The reason we have you doing the ozone machine first is because it will increase the activated oxygen feature, but get less Herxheimer. The best analogy I can use is it's kind of like getting a really, if you're trying to burn something and you had a really hot but pure flame, it's kind of like a more purified flame, so to speak, when you ozonate it. And but then you can even further, I drop in sometimes a gallon dosage in 8 ounces of water, ozonate it, sometimes even mix in a little diatomaceous earth and drink it. And by the way, since I've been doing all this other therapy, I don't need to do that intensive therapy as much. So again, a testimonial to this power of vibration therapy. Remember, it has rife-like carryover. But you got to get the 2-motor machine that I offer. It's cheapest. By the way, the machine I offer is super cheap. The machines usually go for $1,500, $2,000. This machine is really good, does the job, doesn't have handles to hold on to, but you got to get the 2 motors working together to get that rife-like sawtooth square wave kind of cutting edge frequency. If you get 1 motor alone, you're not going to get the same harmonics. So the Maximize Your Bluesy Water program is designed to get maximum detox with least amount of Herxheimer. But still, we have, if you look under our recent blogs here, key components to a holistic program, if you're really, really super toxic and get sick a lot, I'd also suggest getting some high-level antimicrobials. I recommend 2 products, one called Microblast from Rest and Repair. It's listed in these blogs, tips and tools here. And there's a new generation of colloidal silver from a company called American Biotech Labs. And basically what they figured out is how to coat each silver particle so it literally works thousands and thousands of times over. The old traditional colloidal silver, the particle did its job. It's a 1-to-1. That's why they had huge parts per million of 50, 500. Well, when you take a 10 parts per million or a 30 parts per million, it doesn't matter with this product because you got to multiply that times 5,000. So it really becomes super functional. It's not as crude as the other silver. It really works on a lot of heavy-duty stuff. The Microblast, if you have a lot of fungal stuff, a lot of parasites, I'd say it's really good at that. It does also work on bacteria. You have to muscle test your body and see which ones you resonate with. But those 2 are very, very strong antimicrobials. So if you're starting a detox process, you get sick a lot, you always feel like the microbials are coming and kicking your butt. When you stir them up, you can't handle it. Number 1, get the vibration machine, get the rebounder, do everything to maximize, and then have these extra antimicrobials on hand to kind of add a little initial kill factor. But once you get the foundation going, with the bluesy water, the ozonated bluesy water, and everything else, you're going to notice after, depending on how toxic and sick you are, your foundation has become much stronger. It's a patient process, but everyone I've worked with, I've had people go off the bluesy water for a week, and they call me and they're kind of saying things are starting to creep back. Obviously, drinking very healing water is a primary to any health regimen, just common sense.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, any questions? Anybody? There's a lot of information there. And Andrew can send you some videos, whatever else you might need. If there's anything that you're particularly interested in. Andrew, what's your email?
Andrew@bluesywater.com.
Oh, okay. Can people email you at the other one that I provided on the training email?
Yeah, sure. That's my practitioner. Either one, it's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
It's very intense times. The energetics are very intense, so it's so important to, one of the things about bluesy water is it's very balanced. It's very healing. The cells start to say, thank you, give me something sane. So we need to put sanity back into our bodies because the environment is very skewed. There's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of crazy energetics. So developing very profound somatic practices is huge. And I had quite a bit of trauma in my life, so if it can work for me, I know it can work for pretty much anybody.
Thank you.
And I was motivated to. I wasn't very, I knew it was very deep. I knew how to get to it. I knew that I couldn't just, talk therapy it away or just go. I knew that a lot of the analysis that I was taught in therapy was really not the truth. That's why I personally like the Ho'oponopono teachings. It's closer to the truth as far as if you're asking, where did this come from? Why me? Listen to Dr. Yulin talk, and check out Morna Simona's teachings. Now, if you realize it's a much bigger than you, but there it is in you still, stuck in you like a computer virus, now what can you do? And you really have to shift your perspective. Trauma, we always take it very personally, but it's really memories that are begging in a way, if we pay attention, for liberation and love, that have been stuck for generations and generations.
And the key is forgiveness, right? Forgiveness of
Right.
self and forgiveness of others.
But it's kind of like there's an earthquake and someone's screaming out and you don't know where they are. But then you have somebody who has a great device and says, they're there. Then you can forgive them out of the earthquake, out of the trapped building. The biggest problem with a lot of times with our memories is we just can't we don't know where they're coming from. It's that obscuration, back to that. So if you don't know where they're coming from, then we tend to blame ourselves, or we say, forget it, ignore it. But there they are still working on us. So the skill set is it's very tricky, but essentially, the model of Ho'oponopono is memories replaying. And you need to acknowledge the memories. You need to be, in a sense, loving, precious memories, he would say. But how do you make something precious that seems horrific? Well, I really think that the biggest problem, first of all, we don't set up the groundwork. We don't set up a peaceful foundation. We don't regulate the body. We don't do all these foundational practices. And my videos are trying to say these are some simple tools that are very easy to put you in a healing state, and do things that are childlike and simple. The mind is always going to make it complex. So I've looked for things that I can count on. I always trust that if you rock yourself on a chi machine, it's not going to lie to you. It's not going to betray you. So you have to think, what are some of the fundamental grooves, foundations? What is healing?
Right, and find the tools, and thank you so much for sharing with us what works and what doesn't work based on your experience, to facilitate that healing and support our growth and expansion in that way.
And just not to toot my own horn, but the other day my 80-year-old client got off the table and said, I feel like hipping and skipping and hopping, he said. Now, I'm just saying, years and years of studying trauma, even in an 80-year-old body, it can profoundly relax and unwind. And an 80-year-old body is no different than a 3-year-old body. It's just same basic consciousness issues are in a very young body. So once you can get to that information and help it to start to express and move, that's huge. But that's the hardest piece. How do you get in? How do you get access? I wish I could just teach that to everyone. It took me years and years and years. The tools that I put out on my videos are like ways to do self-body work. And this machine, this vibration machine, it's very innocent. It's mimicking, once again, what animals do. You don't have to know much. Just, again, get the reflexology sandals to increase the access into those gripping organs. It's going to help. When I'm working on somebody, if there's a grip in the liver meridian, I'm going to use the points in the feet, the liver points, all the points in the feet. If the feet are tight, you got to unwind the feet, because it reflects. Reflexology means that those tight points in the feet are reflecting to different parts of the body. You have to unwind everything, and this is a whole body unwinding practice, and the reflexology sandals further that release. If you do those two together, and the sandals are only $20, and we have links to Amazon where you can buy them. By the way, they're going to hurt a little at the beginning, so you can wear thick socks. But within a few days, you're going to be just, you're going to love putting them on. You won't hardly feel a thing.
I'm going to get some. And I was wondering if we could mention the Ho'oponopono prayer, because it's such a powerful prayer that I try and do it daily. I know it needs to be done at least once a day, especially when you're going through deep trauma. Which is, I am sorry, please forgive me as I forgive myself. Thank you, I love you.
Just one second.
Is there anything?
1 second, I'm going to get my dog. I think my dogs are doing the prayer. Hold on a second.
Is there anything you can add to that, Andrew?
Well, again, it's the logic of the prayer. And one thing I will add, whenever I do any kind of work, you get so far, you're knocking on God's door, but that doesn't mean God's going to open the door.
Right.
I always say it's like baseball. If you get a 333 batting average, you're doing good. So don't always expect to get that response. But if you're consistent and you continue to practice, and that's why it is practice, you get better results and you get the response. But the model of the prayer for me, it's thank you is, when the memory's showing up, even though you hate it and it sucks, you go, thank you for bringing up the memory to the inner child. You realize that this information is being sent up yet again. It's kicking your ass, but it's an asking to please help me. Mm-hmm. And you can't do it. So if you start judging yourself, well, why did I should do this, I should think positive, whatever, that's not helping. You're simply saying, thank you for sending up the information, because you're trying to send it up to God to clean. So if you realize that it's an ascension prayer, then you show kindness. Literally, this is where you start to doing all these healing practices. The information might be heavy duty, it's kicking your ass. Do your best to love yourself. Whatever you know, that's why we have all these videos. That starts to calm you down. Especially, I'm telling you, when you're in heavy duty trauma from data, from intense memories, you feel like you're dying. Mm-hmm. So the reason I have 10 videos on the vibration therapy is because this really does achieve what animals learn to do to come out of life-threatening states. They die if they don't do this. And people feel like they're dying and literally get all kinds of health problems.
Right. Because they don't manifest into
data will also come into you. You can be feeling blessed and great, and somebody, that happened to me the other day. Somebody was in a bad mood and hit me with their negativity, and I'm like, why'd you ruin my bliss? But inevitably, it means that there's still work to be done. Mm-hmm. I thank you for ruining my bliss. I mean, you don't feel that way. You want to knock them over the head, but basically, if you sit down with it, thank you, because something inside of me is going on that's hasn't been healed. And if you learn to then do the access, get in, so thank you, then I do, the preparation. This is what Morna says. You got to deal with the fear. Then you got to do the breathing. She goes through the steps. Yulin is trying to make it short form. But really, she's going through the steps. So she says, deal with the fear. Well, all these somatic practices are regulating the fear. Then do the breathing. They have a breathing practice which equals 2 breaths per minute when you do it. 7 in, hold, 7 out, hold. That's 28 times 2. It's almost 2 cycles per minute. The breathing mask gets you into very slow yoga breathing. So I find that's just keep it easy. The Chi machine rocks you. It's going to regulate your fear. Once you got the fear regulated and you do the breathing, now you can start to do the cleaning. Now that's a huge preparation. Now for cleaning and locating emotion, for me, I use that emotion code. It's like it tunes me into where the memory is originating. A lot of the confusion for me, I never realized that, how am I supposed to realize I'm playing a great-great-great-grandfather's memory? Well, that work will tune me in. Let's say if it tunes me back to an ancestor memory and then I clean it, the proof is in the pudding. Now, when you hit a memory and you're sourcing it and you're asking where, past life, whatever, and you do whatever you do to track it back, and there's a way to do this work. For me, when I start to, it's like a deja vu. When I start to actually hone in on the memory, it's like a dream is coming back up. And there's this kind of frequency or song or something, and it's hard to describe. That obscure emotion, that memory starts to awaken. Then you do the sweeping and the cleaning, and I do some chakra work. That is a signal that you've actually hit the memory. The hardest part is, how do you identify that you've gotten there? This is very tricky. And this is where deep meditation, you're into certain very deep kind of dreamlike states. There's a sense of, you get different imagery, different feelings. You really have to listen to yourself deeply. Also, being a musician, I understand when you really play an instrument, you have to really get that tone. I play sax. You have to really pay attention. It's a feedback system. So in a sense, that's what's going on with trying to access literally a memory and you don't know where it's coming from. The emotion code helps me find the mystery memories. The Ho'oponopono is an ongoing prayer while you're doing this work to invite the memory to be released. It's a constant invitation. If just doing the prayer works, fantastic. I feel like you need more. You need to regulate the physiology. Like I say, you need to get some work that maybe can tune in. A lot of times I'm replaying a memory, let's say I'm 11 years old or I'm 26. When the work shows me the age, I go, oh yeah, I am replaying. So I forgot this. You actually remember something you forgot. And can you remember a memory that's so subtle that was born into you the moment you were conceived that actually might be a grandmother or a great-grandfather? How do you have to say, is that real? Is that true?
And I guess the more you do this, the more you fine-tune your awareness and ability to be able to detect that as being true. Huh?
It's innocent work, ultimately. It's heartfelt work. But you have to surrender and trust. Like, a lot of times I'll do the emotion code and I'll go, sometimes I do it less now. But I'm like, are you sure? And sometimes your mind's going to mess with it a little. But the worst case scenario is you're off a little. The best case scenario is some sessions are like home runs and some are singles. Rarely do I get a strikeout session. And by the way, when you sit down to do any work, if you're penduluming or asking your body, should I do the work now? By the way, when you're doing that kind of work, that's when you want to get on the vibration machine afterwards. I always ask, should I do the emotion code now? Should I get on, what should I do? By the way, the more I've been doing this shaking ritual on the vibration machine, the less I'm doing the emotion code. I'm not doing it every day. And sometimes variety is the spice of life.
Unless you're married. I'll just throw that in there.
What did you say? Did you say unless you're married?
Unless you're married.
What?
I said unless you're married.
Oh, unless you're married.
Right. Well, Andrew, thank you. This is such important information to share, and I know this is your ministry, so thank you for sharing and serving. And I will upload this webinar, and I will send it to you, Andrew, so that you can post it on your website or whatever you choose to do with it. But it's very valuable information. Thank you.
And please keep in mind, people, this is so simple and innocent. Check out Peter Levine's work. And, everything that I try to put out is really hands-on. I try to make it simple stuff.
Alrighty. Any questions before we finish up here? I've actually got to run to a minister's meeting myself right now, so we're about to close here. And if you do have any questions, please just share them here or send them by email to Andrew. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And we'll see you all soon. Have a great evening. Take care.